2025 is the year when some of the world's biggest construction mega projects stop pouring concrete and start changing people's lives. In India, a new mega airport has arisen on reclaimed ground across the harbor from Mumbai. Navi Mumbai International Airport, designed to grow into a 90 million passenger hub and give one of the world's busiest cities the breathing room it hasn't had in decades. In China, engineers have opened the highest bridge on Earth, the Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge, carrying traffic more than half a kilometer above a canyon and collapsing a twisting mountain drive into a crossing that takes just minutes. Across the border between the United States and Canada, the Gordie Howe International Bridge is finally finished, a record-breaking cable-stayed giant that becomes the longest of its kind in North America and rewires the busiest trade crossing on the continent. And on the Nile, Ethiopia has brought a concrete giant fully online, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Africa's largest hydroelectric project, holding back a vast reservoir and reshaping both the landscape and the geopolitics of an entire region. In this video, we're traveling around the world through 12 megaprojects that, in very different ways, arrive in 2025. And we'll start in the one place that has been waiting the longest. 1. Navi Mumbai International Airport. Mumbai has been living with a bottleneck for over 25 years. The city had just one major international airport and a single main runway, which was handling around 40 million passengers a year, which is far more than it was designed for. As a result, the site used to experience crowded terminals, congested skies, and constant flight delays. But in 2025, this problem finally got some relief. Navi Mumbai International Airport was inaugurated on October 8, 2025. Its Phase 1 alone cost roughly $2.1 billion and added capacity for 20 million passengers per year right from day one. And that's just the beginning. By 2032, the full plan aims for 90 million passengers, 4 runways, and 3 interconnected terminals. A complete aviation ecosystem built for the next generation. What makes this project truly remarkable is how impossible the site seemed to be at first. Ulway Hill stood in the middle, tidal creeks cut through the land, and low-lying areas flooded every monsoon. The city might have just moved the airport elsewhere, but Mumbai didn't have that luxury. So engineers blasted the 92-meter hill carefully, then recycled every piece of rock to raise the ground by 8 to 9 meters. Using advanced water and flood models, they made sure the airport could survive monsoon floods, cyclones, and rising sea levels. Today, the runway sits 8.5 meters above sea level, built not just to stand, but to keep operating safely even in extreme weather. 2025 marked the inauguration and trial operations, and the Adani Group, the operator of both Mumbai airports, is already planning an aero city around the terminal. Hotels, retail spaces, offices, and logistic hubs. This would be like Dubai's aviation model, just designed for India's growth curve. With Navi Mumbai online, the city finally gets room to breathe because of more flights, more jobs, more investment, more global connections. Now, while India was building upward into the sky across the Atlantic, New York was reshaping its skyline the opposite way by tearing it down first. 2. JPMorgan Chase HQ. 270 Park Avenue. In late October 2025, 270 Park Avenue, JPMorgan's new global headquarters, finally opened its doors. The 60-story tower climbs 1,388 feet, costing $3 billion, and is home to 10,000 employees across 2.5 million square feet of office space. In Manhattan, real estate is basically a religion, so when JPMorgan Chase said they were knocking down a perfectly good 52-story skyscraper just to build a bigger one, everyone took notice. Why tear down a building that still worked? The old Union Carbide building was built back in the 1960s, just couldn't keep up. Its systems were outdated, layouts cramped, and there was no room to grow. For JPMorgan, this wasn't simply about a headquarters. They were betting on New York, betting on the office, and betting on the future of work. The engineering matches the boldness of that decision. Giant 2-story steel columns and transfer girders carry the building's weight, leaving wide-open public spaces at ground level, a kind of gift to the city. And to make sure the tower doesn't sway in high winds, engineers installed a 280-ton tuned mass damper on the 54th floor, basically a massive pendulum that keeps the building steady. Expensive? Absolutely. Necessary? Even more so. JPMorgan also designed a post-pandemic office with 19 restaurants, coffee shops you can order from via an app, a gym, and lighting that shifts with the natural rhythm of the day. The idea is that if you build it right, people will come back. Before 2025, people debated if the office was dead. Now with this $4 billion tower standing tall, JPMorgan showed that the office isn't dead, it just needs to be built for the future. Now, if we move toward Asia, China is taking on a different kind of extreme across one of the deepest canyons on Earth. 3. Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge. Imagine standing at the bottom of a canyon and looking up 2,000 feet. That's tall enough to fit the Eiffel Tower twice beneath you. In 2025, China built exactly that. The Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge in Guizhou Province officially opened on September 28, 2025. It is now the world's highest bridge, soaring 625 meters above the canyon floor, stretching only 3 kilometers long with a 1,420-meter main span. It cost around $280 million, but it cut the journey from 70 minutes to just 1 minute. Before this bridge, crossing the canyon meant winding dangerously down one side, navigating narrow roads, and climbing back up the other. It wasn't just frustrating, it cut off trade and isolated communities. By building this bridge, the government bet $280 million that they could turn hours into minutes and boost economic growth. But how do you build a bridge over a 625-meter drop in a place with unstable karst geology, wild temperature swings, and constant canyon winds? For that, engineers relied on high-speed Alimak hoists, machines using rack and pinion systems to safely move workers and materials. They also added solar-powered anemometers to give real-time wind data during constructions. Without these innovations, the project simply wouldn't have been possible. And possible it was. In 2025, the bridge officially opened after load testing. But it's more than just infrastructure. It's a tourist attraction with a glass elevator and a cafeteria at the top. Before 2025, the Huajiang Canyon was a barrier. Now it's a gateway, cutting hours into minutes. Next, let's move towards Saudi Arabia's new ambition. 4. Riyadh Metro. Riyadh's traffic was legendary for being one of the worst in the world. Hours-long commutes, choking pollution, and roads that simply couldn't keep up with the city's explosive growth. To fix this, the city planned the world's longest driverless metro system. The Riyadh Metro went fully live on January 5, 2025, costing around $23 billion. It stretches 176 kilometers with 85 stations and immediately claimed the Guinness World Record for the longest fully automated network. And when you see it running, you understand why it deserves that record. Since the project started in 2012, Riyadh's population had grown nearly 40%, which meant roads were carrying 40% more traffic than before. A conventional metro wouldn't have been enough. Riyadh wasn't just solving a traffic problem, they were building the city's future. To make it work, the city used advanced technology. 0 human drivers across the whole network, real-time monitoring from central control rooms, and automation at a scale no one had attempted before. They relied on proven tech from Siemens, Alstom, and Bombardier, but integrating it across an entire city was unprecedented. Yes, it added cost and complexity, but that's what makes it a symbol of Vision 2030. By 2025, the final lines were operational. Millions of passengers now move effortlessly across Riyadh, turning it from a car-choked nightmare into a modern, connected metropolis. Before 2025, Riyadh meant gridlock. After 2025, it meant possibility. While Riyadh automated underground, North America tackled a different kind of connection, a bridge linking 2 nations. 5. Gordie Howe International Bridge. The Detroit-Windsor corridor is the busiest trade route between the U.S. and Canada, and for decades it was a nightmare. Trucks stretched for miles, delays cost billions, and the old bridge just couldn't handle the volume. In 2025, that finally changed, with North America's longest cable-stayed bridge reaching substantial completion. The Gordie Howe International Bridge connecting Windsor, Ontario, and Detroit, Michigan, was completed in September 2025, with the first vehicles crossing that fall. The project was originally budgeted at $5.7 billion, but the final cost came to $6.4 billion. largely because COVID-19 delays pushed construction back 10 months. Before the bridge, congestion wasn't just frustrating, it was a serious economic drag. Analysts warn that failing to fix it could cost 35,000 Canadian jobs by 2030, plus thousands more in Detroit and Ontario. Building a massive bridge across an international border during a global pandemic tested every plan. The project was a public-private partnership, and the extra cost proved one lesson. Even the smartest strategies can't fully escape global shocks. Today, the bridge, towers, deck, and main cables are in place, and crews are focusing on ports of entry, ramps, and final systems testing ahead of opening. Once traffic starts crossing in 2026, trucks should finally move more smoothly, delays should ease, and this corridor could turn from a choke point into a genuine lifeline for trade. From 2026 onward, if it works as planned, it'll stand for resilience and efficiency instead. Now let's shift continents to Egypt, reconnecting with its history and finally opening a museum decades in the making. 6. Grand Egyptian Museum. After 20 years of waiting, Egypt finally opened the doors to the largest archaeological museum on the planet in 2025, and it's rewriting the rules of who controls history. The Grand Egyptian Museum, just 2 kilometers from the Giza Pyramids, celebrated its grand public opening in November 2025. It cost around $1.2 billion, spans nearly 500,000 square meters, and displays over 100,000 artifacts. It's now the world's largest museum dedicated to a single civilization. Egypt's treasures had been scattered in Cairo's cramped old museum, in storage, and many abroad in Western institutions. The country needed a world-class facility to house its heritage and boost tourism. The government bet over $1 billion that this museum would bring foreign currency, and more importantly, give Egypt leverage to reclaim its narrative. 2 factors make it truly remarkable. The Tutankhamun Gallery is the centerpiece, which is a 7,500 square meter space showcasing all 5,000 pieces from the boy king's tomb together for the first time. The entrance atrium features the 3,200-year-old 11-meter-tall granite colossus of Ramesses the Great. This isn't just about display. Egypt can protect and preserve its treasures as well as any Western museum thanks to cutting-edge climate control, security, and conservation systems. 2025 is the year the gem finally appeared. After decades of delays, political upheaval, and construction challenges, Egypt's most prized treasures finally have a permanent home. Earlier, West was the owner of Egypt's historical heritages. The British Museum held the Rosetta Stone, and Berlin's Neues Museum held the bust of Nefertiti. Now with this $1.2 billion museum, Egypt has a leverage to demand the return of these artifacts. The debate is no longer whether Egypt can protect its history, it's whether the West will give it back. While Egypt looked to the past, Australia was digging into the future. Let's see how. 7. Melbourne Metro Tunnel. Melbourne was running out of room to grow because the city's population was booming, but its rail network was stuck in the 20th century. In 2025, the city doubled its rail capacity, not by building up, but by burrowing deep underground. The Melbourne Metro Tunnel, Australia's largest transport infrastructure project, opened in November 2025. It cost $13.48 billion Australian dollars. The project consists of a 9-kilometer twin tunnel connecting South Yarra, the Melbourne CBD, and South Kensington, with 5 brand new underground stations. Melbourne's existing rail network couldn't keep up with urban growth. The city loop was saturated and there was no cheap fix. Surface rail was out because the city center was too dense. The only option was to go underground. The government bet at $13.48 billion that solving this would unlock urban density and keep Melbourne competitive as Australia's fastest growing city. This was a big dig in every sense. 4 massive tunnel boring. Machines carved their way beneath the city, averaging a depth of 26 meters. The operation ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Expert crews worked in hyperbaric conditions deep underground, and one crew made history as the world's first all-women TBM team. That complexity and scale pushed costs up, and the final price tag rose about 23% from the original 2016 budget, largely due to unforeseen issues, including COVID-19 disruptions. 2025 is the year the tunnel opened for passenger service. Melbourne's rail capacity effectively doubled, and the city can finally accommodate the growth that planners anticipated 2 decades ago. The next project of ours is rebuilding above ground and bringing one of the world's most iconic football clubs back to a stadium that's still half finished. 8. Spotify Camp Nou, SP Barça. For 2 years, FC Barcelona played in exile. The club's iconic Camp Nou stadium sat empty, wrapped in scaffolding and construction cranes. In November 2025, Barca finally came home. Although the stadium is still under construction as of now, at least they have a future hope. The renovation of Spotify Camp Nou was part of the larger €1.5 billion SP Barça transformation, reached a crucial milestone in November 2025. The club returned to the stadium for its league fixture against Athletic Bilbao on November 22nd, operating at a limited capacity of 45,401 attendees. Full completion is still projected for 2027. Camp Nou is the heart of FC Barcelona, but the aging structure couldn't keep up with modern demands or generate the revenue the financially struggling club desperately needed. The club bet €1.5 billion that rebuilding it would solve both problems: create a world-class venue and restart the match-day revenue that's critical to survive. The challenge? Rebuilding an iconic stadium while keeping the team competitive. By late 2025, construction crews had closed the north stand structure, installed prefabricated stands in the lateral and upper sections, and made visible progress on new facade panels. But the third tier remained closed, confirming the partial nature of the reopening. That phased approach was driven by urgency. Barcelona needed the revenue now, even if it meant playing in a construction site. 2025 is the year Barca returned home. The club acquired the Phase 1B license from the City Council in October, allowing capacity to increase from 27,000 to over 45,000 fans. Before 2025, Camp Nou was a symbol of Barcelona's financial struggles. Now, with the partial reopening, the club has restarted match-day revenue, even if it came with controversy. Ticket prices soared, some exceeding €1,000 for premium hospitality options. Now, let's head towards Virginia's tunneling project that makes Camp Nou's delays look minor. 9. Hampton Roads Bridge, tunnel expansion. For decades, the Hampton Roads corridor in Virginia was a commuter's nightmare. Tunnels were old, traffic kept piling up, and everyone knew the frustration. In 2025, a custom-built tunnel boring machine named Mary finally broke through. The $3.9 billion Hampton Roads Bridge tunnel expansion hit a defining milestone in 2025 with the completion of its massive tunneling component. The project adds twin 2-lane bored tunnels along a nearly 10-mile stretch of Interstate 64, designed to finally ease the bottleneck that had been choking one of the East Coast's busiest corridors. The existing immersed tube tunnels couldn't handle today's traffic. Bottlenecks were annoying, but they were costing the regional economy millions. Virginia bet $3.9 billion that solving this with new tunnels would pay off in faster commutes, fewer accidents, and economic growth. Instead of disrupting the busy Chesapeake Bay shipping channel, engineers chose to bore beneath the existing tunnels. TBM Mary, built specifically for this mission, launched from the South Island in April 2023. She reached the North Island in April 2024, completed a 6-month turnaround, and began the second bore in October 2024, finishing on September 24, 2025. Mary worked like a moving, self-supporting underground factory, installing tunnel rings as she went. That approach added hundreds of millions to the cost, but it protected the shipping economy that keeps the region alive. 2025 is the year Mary completed her mission. The twin tunnels are now bored, and the project is on track for final completion and opening to traffic. Let's move toward Iraq's even bigger bet, who is building a port that could reshape trade routes across the entire Middle East. 10. Faw Grand Port. Iraq has been a geopolitical flashpoint for decades due to wars, sanctions, and instability. But in 2025, the country bet on a massive port on the Gulf Coast, capable of connecting Iraq's east and west. The Grand Faw port near Basra reached its initial operational phase in 2025, completing the first 5 berths. Built under a $2.6 to $2.7 billion contract with South Korea's Daewoo E&C as the main contractor, the port is designed to handle up to 99 million tons per year when fully operational, potentially surpassing Dubai's Jebel Ali as the Middle East's largest container terminal. For decades, Iraq's economy relied almost entirely on oil, but that dependence is risky. The country needed a new identity, a way to become a logistics powerhouse, not just an energy exporter. The government bet billions that this port could do just that. Position Iraq as a transit hub linking the Gulf to Europe and a competitor to established maritime powers. But the real ambition doesn't stop at the port. Al-Faw is the anchor for the Development Road Megaproject, a $17 to $20 billion plan to build an integrated railway and highway network spanning 1,200 kilometers. This network will pass through Karbala, Baghdad, Mosul, and connect directly to the Turkish border, linking the Gulf to the European Union. The scale and complexity are staggering, but that's exactly what makes this project transformative. 2025 marks the year Phase 1 of the port became operational. The first berths handle cargo. Before 2025, Iraq meant conflict and oil. After 2025, it means trade and opportunity. With a $2.7 billion port online and the development road taking shape, Iraq is buying a second chance at its economic future. While Iraq bet on trade, Canada was making its own bet on energy exports in a facility that's now one of the most controversial infrastructure projects in the country. 11. LNG Canada Phase 1. Canada just stepped into the global LNG export game, and the facility making it possible is already stirring one of the fiercest debates in energy. Climate versus economics. Can you claim to fight climate change while ramping up fossil fuel exports? LNG Canada is forcing that question into the open. Located in Kitimat, British Columbia, LNG Canada went operational in June 2025, shipping its first cargo from Train 1 in July. It's Canada's first large-scale liquefied natural gas export terminal, with Phase 1 capacity at 14 million tons per year, equivalent to 1.84 billion cubic feet per day. Canada has huge natural gas reserves, but until now, no way to export them to Asia at scale. Positioned on the Pacific coast, LNG Canada shortens shipping times to key markets like Japan, South Korea, and China, giving North America a strategic edge. Analysts project projects like this will drive over 50% of global LNG growth through 2029. The bet? Exporting cleaner, burning natural gas can displace dirtier fuels abroad, while the economic payoff justifies the investment. But here's the catch. Liquefying gas requires cooling it to negative 162 degrees Celsius, and LNG Canada does that by burning natural gas turbines. As a result, they create 2.1 megatons of CO2 equivalent annually, making it one of the most climate-polluting projects in British Columbia. Industry advocates argue it's cleaner than many global LNG plants, and they're right, but it still adds a major carbon footprint to Canada's domestic emissions. Critics say it undermines Canada's climate goals, even if the exported gas reduces emissions elsewhere. That tension isn't going away. 2025 is the year LNG Canada went live, with the first cargo shipped in July, marking Canada's official entry into the global LNG export market. Before 2025, Canada watched the U.S. dominate LNG. Now, with this terminal online, Canada is shipping gas to Asia and collecting the revenue, but paying the price in emissions and political debate. The question remains, does the global climate benefit outweigh the local environmental costs? You answer that. We can move on to our last project in Ethiopia. 12. Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. For over a decade, one dam has been at the center of a regional crisis. Egypt calls it an existential threat. Ethiopia calls it a matter of sovereignty. Sudan is stuck in the middle. In 2025, Ethiopia declared the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam complete, and the controversy hit a new peak. Africa's largest hydroelectric project, the GERD, was officially inaugurated on September 9, 2025. The $5 billion gravity dam on the Blue Nile is designed to generate up to 5,150 megawatts. By February 2025, 5 of its 13 turbines were already online, producing electricity. Ethiopia has long struggled with energy shortages due to blackouts, limited industrial output, and no ability to export power. The government bet $5 billion that this dam would flip the script, turning the country from energy deficient to energy exporting, powering economic growth and regional influence. But there's a catch. The dam sits on the Blue Nile, which supplies most of Egypt's water. What Ethiopia calls development, Egypt calls a threat to survival. The reservoir was fully filled in September 2024, and by 2025, the turbines were running. Yet the engineering marvel comes with geopolitical risk. Managing water during extreme weather, especially heavy rains in the Ethiopian highlands, requires transparent data sharing between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt. That coordination doesn't exist. When severe flooding hit northern Egypt in late 2025, Egypt publicly blamed Ethiopia's reckless dam management. Ethiopia fired back that it followed technical protocols and mitigated what would have been worse flooding in Sudan. This clash highlights a hard truth. Without agreed-upon transparency, natural water cycles will remain politicized, fueling mistrust and prolonging the crisis. 2025 is the year the GERD became operational and fully inaugurated. Ethiopia now generates power and positions itself as a future energy exporter. For $5 billion, Ethiopia bought energy security, but also a lasting conflict with downstream neighbors. The real question isn't whether the dam works, it's whether the three countries can figure out how to manage it before the next crisis hits. Across India, China, the United States, Canada, the Middle East, Europe, and Africa, these megaprojects aren't just finishing construction. They're starting to shape daily life. Airports are opening new gateways. Bridges are shrinking distances that once felt impossible. Tunnels, ports, metros, museums, and energy systems are rewriting how entire regions move, trade, work, and grow. These 12 megaprojects prove one thing. If you build something big enough, bold enough, and resilient enough, it can change everything. What do you think? Which of these projects will have the biggest impact over the next decade? And which ones raise more questions than answers? Let us know in the comments. We read every one. If you enjoy deep dives into the world's biggest infrastructure and engineering stories, make sure you're subscribed to MegaBuilds. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.